Teşekkürler Sayın.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to speak in Turkish in order to be able to make the best use of my time. First of all, I would like to greet everyone on behalf of the Chamber of Environmental Engineers. Now, my speech here has been repeated on different occasions in different conferences, panels, normally on behalf of our chamber, and we are now giving this speech today under the umbrella of the Parliament. These are things that we have been talking about for years, and we have been trying to solve for years. We are, as a chamber of environmental engineers, we watch the interests of the country, of the nature, with a labor-oriented understanding in mind. Our aim here is not to stop infrastructural projects, which are definitely needed in contemporary countries, of course. The idea for us is all about making sure that these infrastructures are implemented reasonably and in an equitable manner. As environmental engineers, we are more technical people, so I will try to be rather more technical, and I will also touch upon some administrative problems also. We try to see problems and try to come up with solutions. I will try to touch upon some problems that we have observed. In the previous session, there was mention of the EU progress report. Indeed, the progress report, which was published last November, was perhaps one of the best ones ever published as far as environment is concerned. But the statements there were rather late. Those statements, interestingly, came only in 2015. The EU must have mentioned them actually in 2004. We had these mega projects earlier than 2015, but interestingly, in the previous progress reports, those were not mentioned by the EU. Now, the third airport is a mega project, and the companies who are involved, some of them come from EU member countries. There's a Belgian company, for example, and there is a Norwegian company who has done the architectural drawings. A Norwegian architect did the drawings. Now, one wouldn't want to say it this way, but now, did the EU wait for beginning of the construction to make mention of this mega project in its progress report? This is a question the EU should ask itself. Of course, we do want to see these projects implemented in Turkey, but they should be done in the right way and in a sound manner. And they shouldn't serve the interests of certain interest groups, and these projects should not damage our nature. The northern forests in Istanbul are connected with the Bulgarian forests. The air in Turkey is connected with that of the EU. So everything or anything that we do is connected with the Balkans. These sensitivities on the part of the EU should come in the right time, at the right time, before projects already start to be constructed. Now, I have presentations, slides available. In our chamber in Turkey, we have been harmed. At some point, the ministry was closed and 2 new ministries were established to replace the existing previous ministry. Now, the problems that I have been talking about started to take root with that organizational change. As a result of this organizational change, environment-related administration was separated from water-related administration. And people who were experienced and who had the merit could not work anymore, and the teams changed. For example, the quality of water is identified by the Ministry of Forestry, but the waste is being tackled by the environment. So there is a separation of powers when it comes to creek and river management, because of which water cannot really be managed anymore in managerial terms, in administrative terms. Now, here on this slide, you see the situation about water. The blue bars show you the potential water potential, and the red one is the distributed, i.e. sold water amount. This comes from the relevant administration's reports. In the Konya basin, water was sold, although there is no water actually. So this is an interesting graph. So in such an environment, with the existing administrative organization, we cannot really manage the environment in a sound manner. But these criticisms never existed in the progress reports of the European Commission before 2015. Ankara, the capital, has a population of 4.5 million. There are only a handful of environmental inspectors who are trying to inspect things in Ankara. This is yet another problem. Arif Çüngü talked about problems that have to do with EIA reports. Now, the regulation, the legislation on impact reports, in short, EIAs, has been amended for so many times. We now see, I think, the 18th amendment on the relevant legislation. And recently, the authority said the way it is right now, the regulation on the EIA, Environmental Impact Report, is null and void because of several amendments. It cannot be implemented in practice anymore, so we now need a new regulation from scratch. So there are implementation-related problems. Because of such problems, we generally go to court, try to solve problems. But in Turkey, unfortunately, as far as these environmental impact reports, Turkey is in a situation where we cannot manage the situation, manage these reports, and administer them anymore. This is Leyla, a symbol. Now, of course, impact assessment needs people's participation. People have their democratic rights, as part of which they have the right to protest. If there is a facility which is being built in a place, and if a certain person protests against it, this young lady, Leyla, is an example. She did this, and she was taken to court because of having protested. In litigations about environmental impact reports, you go to court, the court assigns an expert to look into the issue. And you have to, if you have initiated a litigation, you have to pay the fees of the experts, which in Turkey are quite high now. There was a villager who went to court in order to pay the fee of the expert. This villager had to sell his cow. So this is another example about the litigation process in Turkey and how unsound it is. The current mega projects, we talk a lot about them. Now, coming to those projects, the EIA report, now there is an exemption process, which has already been explained by the previous speaker. The third bridge is an example of those exemptions from the environmental impact reports. Now, you want loans from a bank, you go to a bank or banks to get credits, and you know what banks I'm talking about. You have to prepare English environmental impact reports. The managers of the bank who received these applications for loan, who received the English versions of the environmental impact reports, the managers in the bank did know all the details because they saw the reports. But I myself, as a citizen, I had no idea as to what was going on, and I didn't know about the routes, the alignments, and how many trees would be cut off. The managers of the bank did know, and most of those banks come from Europe, mind you. Another example, the third airport. Coming to the EIA report of the third airport. Now, in Turkey, I think universities should study this as a case study for their students. In brief, the report says the following. In order to build the third airport, we have to demolish 70 wetlands, and birds normally migrate through this area, and we have to destroy their nourishment areas, and we have to combat insects and plantations. These are commitments given in the environmental impact report, EIA. And this report got to be approved by the Ministry of Environment, stating that these commitments are accurate and the report is good. Now, What we say in Turkey is, if you commit to something, you should implement those commitments. If you don't, normally you should be penalized according to the relevant environmental law. Now, this is the kind of report, impact report, which says if you don't cut trees and kill birds and insects, the environment will penalize, the Ministry of Environment will penalize you. Unfortunately, this report has been approved. Now, the airport should normally be flat. And we're talking about 2.5 million cubic meters of filled material. The foundation is made up of filled sea. Now, in Istanbul, in the Metropolitan Municipality's Environmental Committee, the plan was approved. And according to this plan, it stated that if need be, the airport could well be constructed in the district of Silivri. Now, in order to build this airport in the place that it is now being filled, you have to fill 2.5 million cubic meters of sea. In practice, this means the following. I mean, think of a football field. This will give you an elevated area of about 330 meters. This is the kind of mega project we're talking about. Let's go on. Okay. Now, we already heard about climate change. Turkey tried to be active in Paris, but going to the example of Çanakkale, 18 thermic plants, power plants will be, thermal plants will be established in Turkey, and this has a high total capacity for these thermal projects. 1.6 million trees will need to be cut down for these power plants, and these environmental impact reports are being approved by the ministry. But Turkey, in Paris, in the climate summit, committed to fighting against climate change. Now, in summary, we do have problems, we have big problems. The EU harmonization process is in fact an opportunity. We know this, at least for legislation and for solving of some problems, it's an opportunity. But of course, we cannot come up with a clear-cut solution, because for a clear-cut and radical solution, mindsets need to change. But Turkey is a big country with a certain capacity. We have academicians, scholars, we have distinguished engineers, architects, lawyers. So the country does have a capacity to solve its problems. But for that, we need to display solidarity, and we need to continue to work, understanding that environment is a global problem.
Very interesting facts and figures and information. Now I would like to lead over to Mr. Mehmet Horush, our environmental lawyer. Would you like to speak?